Hi, welcome back. This is Management Consulting 101, where we share tips, we share tricks and strategies to help you navigate application and transition into management consulting. This is more so helpful for a candidate who is not from traditional business or MBA background. I'm the host, Gladys Ngatich. I came from a PhD. I have a PhD in aerospace engineering, and somewhere along the way, I decided to give management consulting a try. And here I'll be sharing those tips to help you navigate your application. And also, down the line, we'll share about how the job is really like and maybe some of the exit opportunities. So if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing so you do not miss any episode. And as you can tell, my voice is a little bit off today. I'm coming from a week of flu, but that does not stop us from releasing an episode. So bear with me. I'll be coughing and sneezing, but I hope we get this episode out. I have been promising to share tactics for you to use during your case interview. But before you watch this episode, I want you to watch the other episode I made on what the interviewers are really looking for. Because it's only when you understand what they want to get from you or the kind of people they want to get in, then you can adapt the tactics that we show you, we tell you here on the internet, to the firm, to the whatever case situation you will be in. So today I'll be sharing with you, I call them 7 modules that the interviewer will be reading the case and watching out how you go through the case and grading you. Disclaimer is to say, I'm not an interviewer. I'm giving you these tips from my own experience going through the interviewing process and having worked in one of the MBBs. I have also coached a couple of candidates who successfully transitioned into management consulting. So let's go through these 7 tactical tips or modules that you will find or you need to demonstrate during the case interview. We'll move from the beginning when the case is read out, what you need to do, some tips and some tricks, and then to the end, to the recommendation. Module number 1, opening of the case. Your job here is to absorb the client situation very quickly, confirm the problem you are actually solving, demonstrate that you actually listened when the interviewer was reading the case, and then synthesize, play it back to the interviewer before jumping into solving the problem. So these are tactical moves you need to make during module number 1, reading of the case. Number 1, take concise notes. As the interviewer reads the context, the prompt, write down the client, the industry, the core problem, any numbers mentioned, anything interesting, note it down. You are not transcribing, just capture the skeleton. Number 2, play it back in 2 or 3 sentences. You do not want to play it back word by word. Show that you understand the context and not just the wordings. Number 3, ask targeted questions. 1 or 2 or 3 maximum, not more than 3. I would say ask what you genuinely want to understand about the context. Don't ask some of the things that you know you might be solving down the line. So if it's a profitability case, right, you do not want to start asking about, do we have revenue numbers? Do we have cost numbers? Those are the things that you will be asking down the line. So you have to be very clever about what questions you want to ask. Number 4, this is very important. Confirm the core issue that you'll be solving. Confirm the core objective. So my goal is to solve XXX, right? And then if you missed anything, the interviewer will be like, yeah, that's right. And they might add other things, any key thing that you missed. But it's important that you confirm before you start jumping into the calculation. I tell my candidates, my mentees, the question could be as simple as, I was even giving just a random simple example. We need to carry, there are 16 guests, just random example. I don't know even if this fits like a business case. We need to carry 16 guests between conference venue and the hotel. And we have a small car that can carry 4 people at a time. How many trips do we have to make? Assuming that is a client problem. I mean, it's too simple for a case. But if you are someone comfortable with numbers like I was, I would be itching to start calculating. And the answer, I'll just be like, maybe 16 divided by 4. And it's 4 trips. But in business case, as you've already realized, it's not about the answer. It's about the step-by-step and the thinking behind the answer. So the answer can be right, but the thinking and the logic, if you do not explain step-by-step, if you do not confirm, you will still get the answer, but you will not get the job. Always confirm the objective. Don't jump in, even if the answer is so almost straight. Just confirm. In terms of timing here, do not waste a lot of time. Keep it very tight. Maybe 60 to 90 seconds. Every second you spend here asking unnecessary questions, the interviewer will not nudge you along. They will just let you waste time. So you do not want to waste a lot of time here. You want to spare time for the real calculations down the line. And I should give a disclaimer that most of my tactics are from my experience going through interviewee-led, where the interviewer just kind of guides you, but the interviewee, you the candidate, is the one leading the case. And I think it's mostly Bain and BCG who do interviewee-led. The last time I checked, I think McKinsey was more interviewer-led, meaning the interviewer will be nudging you and kind of guiding you, but still, most of these principles will still apply across. And if you ask me, I really struggled with the interviewee-led. Man, I was so uncomfortable with leading a case that I know little about. But as you will find, and that is why they are testing you on this, is that at the job, most of the cases, you absolutely do not know what is coming next. You might have an inkling, hypothesis, ideas, but it's just like you will be figuring things as you go. And the interviewer is trying to see if you're actually comfortable steering the wheel, even if you're not very sure of the future or where the case is going. That is one of the skill or attitude or behavior that they are actually trying to see as you go through the modules. Another tip that I used personally is to have, before I went to the interview room, I had blank pages written 1 to number 10. So 10 blank pages. And I would recommend, I don't know, maybe you have another tactic, but I would recommend that for every module, so the reading of the case context, I would write it on number 1. Most of the time, you might not even get to number 10, but just name the papers so that you don't confuse them. And so the case would be on page number 1. Everything about the case, I would write there, the questions, and then I will be circling or underlining the important aspects like the data or the nuances. Anything that was interesting, I would just circle it or underline, and then I would leave that paper on the side. And then when I go to the framework, which we're calling module number 2, I would go to the next paper, and then that is where I do my framing. The reason why that is important is because as you progress through the case, as you do the framework, as you read the charts, as you do the calculations, as you do the creative question, as you do the recommendation, everything has to tie back together. It's like a thread. You need to see a thread through all of them. All these modules are not standalone. And so I used to do that so that whenever I'm doing the calculation, I could just be glancing at page number 1 and kind of checking what was the important number, what was the important question that was asked, so that you bring it up strategically as you do calculations or as you read the charts, etc. Let's go to module number 2, which is framing. There is an entire video I made, entire episode on frameworks. Scroll through the videos, check that framework, and then maybe come here. So a framework, we said it's not a template, and it's just a logical issue tree that helps you solve a problem. It's kind of a logical map that helps you and the interviewer walk through the case. It should be messy, which is mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive. Most importantly, a framework has to be adapted to the case that you are solving, to the client context and nuances. And if you are lifting whatever framework you read or the textbook and using it as is during the case, you are approaching it all wrong. When you communicate framework, you communicate it top down. And I'll tell you what that means. So during the module number 2, framing, these are some of the tactics or some of the tips that I would encourage you to start practicing or to showcase. Number 1 is to ask for a moment. Just tell the interviewer, okay, I've understood the context. Give me a moment to structure my thinking. Spend as little time as possible. Any second you spend here, again, there is a heavy, like the core of the case is coming down the line. So you do not want to spend a lot of time in the framing. I would say 60 to 90 seconds. And you do not have to have everything in the framework. You just need 80%. They are also watching for 80-20 thinking. You do not have to have all the drivers. You just need to include 80% of key drivers in your framework. Number 2, build a case-specific framework. Do not just lift the framework you read and use it as is. You have to adapt. Even the wordings. Think of the simple. I like using the simple profitability. You say the cost, the revenue, but you could even just use instead of just saying the cost, you could just say laptop costs. So maybe this is a laptop distributor and they are trying to increase revenue. So don't just say profitability is cost and revenue. Use the language, use the client language. That is even the lowest hanging fruit. Next tip is when you come back to communicate in top down. We mentioned that these guys are not hiring an analyst or an associate or a consultant. And I know you just applied for those roles, but they are really looking for a future partner, because they do not want to spend a lot of time bringing you in and then you do not show or you are not capable of being trained to be a future managing director or a partner. You might leave the firm in 1 year, in 2 years, but they are increasing the probability of some people remaining and that they will be able to build some of these skills. How do they communicate? You will find most of these execs, they like to communicate top down. They start with key issue, what is the key message, and then they go down. This was the hardest thing for me, because in academia, when I used to write, when I was a PhD student and I was writing my research papers, we would start from kind of the bottom. We would start with like, hey guys, here is the literature, these people did this, and then here is more literature, and then here is the methodology here, and then your answer is literally at the end, down there, like at the last page. I don't know about other fields. Maybe you guys have different ways of writing research papers, but in consulting, you flip the pyramid and you start with the top. You start with, we are losing 90% of jobs due to AI. You start with the takeaway and then you drill down. So as you go through the case, and it's not only during the framework, you want to practice speaking top down. So how do you communicate your framework? If it was profitability and you have to present your framework, you say, I have two main things that I want to look at. I want to look at revenue, and then I want to look at cost side. When you communicate, you do not say I want to look at revenue and then start explaining the revenue. You start with the first layer. So I want to look at cost and revenue. On the revenue side, I would like to look at 3 things, 1, 2, 3. And then as you explain the drivers on the revenue side, you give a very quick. You do not want to over-explain things here because you will be wasting time. You want to give a quick logic why. So you would say, example, I want to look at cost and revenue. On the cost side, I would like to look at the cost of raw materials. I know the client, as we heard earlier, the client changed the supplier, and maybe that increased the cost of supply. And the next thing I want to look at is this under the cost. So you give a very quick. You do not have to explain all of them, but the most important one that you think are the key drivers, especially that you are already thinking, okay, maybe this could be the problem given the context. And we mentioned that you want to sprinkle some of the things that you saw in the news. It's not a must, but yeah, scan the news, start reading. If you've been shortlisted to go through the case interviews, that is a skill you need to start developing anyways. Knowing what is in the news, reading business news, etc. Before you end, again, we are going through the interviewee-led. So I'm assuming you as a candidate is leading the interview. Before you let the interviewer speak, you make sure you pick one issue and prioritize that issue and give an hypothesis why you are prioritizing that issue. Again, you might be wrong, but you still get the points if you prioritize and you give an hypothesis why, and then you say next step. So you could say something like, as a next step, I would like to prioritize the cost side, particularly the cost of raw materials, because my hypothesis is that since we changed the supplier, maybe the cost of raw materials went up. And if you agree, as a next step, I would like to start looking into that. I would actually want you to use those exact words. Say hypothesis, say next step. You are driving the case. You are not asking the interviewer, so what next? You are proposing the next step and then just seeking alignment with the interviewer. And even if the cost wasn't the issue, if the revenue was the thing, you will still get the points because you are driving the case. And most likely what the interviewer will do, if they have the exhibits or the data on cost, they might just show you the cost and maybe show you that it's been flat, despite the fact that we changed the supplier. Just making an educated guess of what the answer could be based on some logical reasoning. It could be wrong, but as long as it's logical to you, it's something you saw in the news and you think maybe that could be the driver. It's something you heard from the case and you think that could be the answer. It's not random. And you need to be able to explain why. The interviewer could even pressure test you and say, I'm curious, why did you pick that? You need to have a logical, reasonable explanation. And as long as it's logical, reasonable explanation, it's fine. So, like we said, to summarize, just pick one issue, commit to that, explain the reasoning in one sentence or two. Ask for data. As a next step, I would like to deep dive into this issue. Do we have data on this? Use confident language. It was so difficult when I think back to the interviewing process. I was uncomfortable with uncertainty. Those are some of the skills that the interviewer is looking for. Like we mentioned, real cases are always uncertain and they are looking for someone who will stay confident anyway. So module number 4, this is where we go to exhibits. The moment the interviewer, so you've told the interviewer, I want to look at this issue. And the interviewer will be like, oh, glad you asked. Let me show you this exhibit. And then you tell me what you think about it. So the moment they hand you that data, the chart, the table, I would, it's not all the time. I would recommend asking for a moment and literally take the least amount of seconds. It should not even be more than 20. Okay, depends. If it's a complex chart, ask for a minute. It's better you take a minute to think through what you're going to communicate rather than quickly speaking and then getting confused as you speak. They will deduct points really quickly. And so I would rather just take a moment and just make sure that you spend as little time as possible keeping quiet. Extract the insights really quickly, connect the problem, and always think about what are we solving for. And that's why it's important that you have those pages separately laid out cleanly on the table so that you can, as you look at the charts, you are also glancing at the real problem. As you look at the data, the tables, ask the question, what were we solving for? What are we trying to solve for? Remember, after reading the charts, whatever happens during the exhibits, it's just meant to continue driving the case forward. It's not a standalone. So all the conclusions, all the numbers that you pick from there, they should be tied to the original problem and they should help you continue driving the case forward. So these are some of the tips. Ask for a moment. Ask for 5 seconds, for 10 seconds. You could say, give me a moment to look at this or read this. Quickly look at the axis, the units, the time period, the data source. Do not start speaking until you know what you're going to say and how you will therefore move forward. This is my proposal. So take the time, and then when you come back, just say 3 main things from this exhibit. The reason why you need to say 3 things, 3 main takeaway from this chart or from this exhibit, is so that you stop at number 3. Otherwise, as you can imagine, right? There are a lot of numbers, they give you like this big exhibit, and you can talk about that exhibit for 5 minutes. But to stop you, to make you look like you know what you're speaking about, use a structure. And the best structure, I would say, is to just say 1, 2, 3. So 3 main things from this exhibit. The first one, you could just say what you are seeing there, which most of the time there is a subtitle. You don't have to repeat the subtitle, but you can just synthesize or adapt it in a way. So you could say, number 1, this table shows the total operating costs broken down by category in a span of 5 years. Number 2, what this is telling us is this. And number 3, what this means for our client. And I would actually want you to force that word. What does this mean? And so what? So you could say something like this. This suggests that the fuel costs have been the main driver and not the labor as I initially thought. As a next step, I would like to actually dig deeper into this to see XYZ. And if you agree, I would like to do that. It might not even be the correct next step, but you are driving it. You've told us the 3 main takeaways. You've told us the so what, and you have just told us, and so what next? Where do we want to go next? And then the interviewer will just help you from there. The interviewer will like, okay, actually, by the way, before we dig deeper, let's do this first. But you've already earned the points for driving the case. Module number 5, I've never actually seen a case where there wasn't a calculation. So likely you will find a calculation. And so this is module number 5, where you do some calculation, where you estimate, where you calculate, you size something relevant to the case. The maths is usually very simple. What is being tested is structure, accuracy, and most importantly, the ability to connect the numbers to the problem at hand. That is the so what. I was very quick. I think I failed the first time when I went through the interviewing because I'm very good with numbers. So I would get accurate numbers, but I was struggling to explain and so what. We've gotten accurate maths, yes, but so what? In a business case, a number is just a number. When you connect to the problem, that is when the real insights start coming out. So these are some of the tips. Confirm before you start calculating. So you would say, here is how I am going to go about this. I will estimate X, then multiply Y to get Z. And then from there, I'll just repeat the process for all the columns. And then the interviewer will be like, yeah, that sounds okay to me. And so do not keep quiet is the next tip. So you've laid out what you're going to do, and then the interviewer said that is okay. So don't keep quiet. It sounds weird, but you have to communicate out loud. So you say, I'm now on column 1. I've just divided X by Y. I've gotten 20 million. So product number 1 is 20 million. I'm going to now product number 2, still the same column A. I've divided this by this. I've gotten 10 million. And column number C, now I'm going to the second row, calculating this product. Narrate out loud. And I want you to watch out very keenly. Sometimes you do not need to go through all the calculations, and you will get extra points if you can be 80-20. So say you were trying to find top 2 products, and when you quickly scanned through the table, you already have an idea that maybe product A and B are the main drivers. You do not have to calculate from A to E to conclude that A and B were the 2 main products. So you could just calculate and say, actually, I'm noticing that we might already have the 2 main drivers, because as I can see, the rest of the products, the numbers are really small compared to these 2. And so if I even go through the entire process, I'll still get smaller numbers. The big numbers I've gotten so far is product A and product C. And I would say those are the main 2 products that are driving the cost of this. As a next step, I would want to prioritize and maybe dig deeper. If you agree, you will get extra points. So always scan. You do not have to do all the calculations. Sometimes you have to do all the calculations before you communicate what you've gotten. But sometimes it's just a test. They are trying to figure out, is this person operating in 80-20? Also, always sense check. Once you've gotten the number, ask yourself, does this sound right? You've gotten something like 40,000, and you're trying to find out the population of the US. You know it's not in thousands, it's in million. And so you're first, before you even report what you've gotten, just try and sense check silently in your head before you report. Don't just report whatever you've gotten before you sense check it. And finally, before you keep quiet, make sure you say so what and so what next. So I've gotten 4. That means our client wanted 50. Meaning the product we just sized is not enough to deliver what the client wants. And so as a next step, I would like to actually look at the next product to see if there could be a chance that we can add, how much we can add there towards the client target. Otherwise, whatever they're trying to do will not deliver their target. I'm just making things up. But the number you've gotten, so what about that number in relation to what you're trying to solve or what the client is trying to achieve? And so what next? What do you want to do next? Module number 6. Most of the time, it comes after the calculation. But sometimes some of the interviewers are very clever, and they know most of the candidates, they've kind of figured out where these qualitative side of the interview, where you do brainstorming, most of the people have figured out that it comes after maybe calculations. And so sometimes they even throw this brainstorming module before you even do your framework, or immediately after your framework. They can just bring that question. And so this question can be thrown anywhere. So these reasoning behind this qualitative brainstorming It's designed to test whether you can generate new, novel, business-grounded ideas under pressure. I must say relevant as well. How they ask it, some interviewers will be plain and say, let's brainstorm this. But some will use will use sneaky language. They could say, oh, that is interesting. What else do you think is causing this issue? That is like challenging you to brainstorm more ideas. Or how can we, if we've just gotten 4, what other ideas do you think we can explore to reach 50? But what other ideas haven't we considered? Tips here: ask for a moment. I'm a strong proponent of ask for a moment, keep quiet. I would rather you take 1 minute and then give something that makes sense rather than starting to talk and then worse off you just continue speaking in a non-structured way, or you say 1 point and then that is it. 1 point is not enough here. So you could say, give me 10 seconds to think about this. When you have a lot of adrenaline in your body, sometimes you think you are silent for 5 seconds, but you've been silent for 1 minute. So you need to watch out for that. Too long silences are a bit weird. So keep it 5 seconds. Keep it 10 seconds. You do not have to have everything figured out. Just sketch something on that paper. When you come back, another tip, when you come back to report your brainstormed ideas, again, top down and structured. So make sure you, in one way or another, structure your thinking into short term, long term, internal, external, quick wins, moonshots. Whatever it is, just structure in a way. If you're struggling to structure, just use 1, 2, 3 method. That is my go-to structuring way. So you could say, 3 things that we haven't considered, or 3 ideas to consider. Number 1, and again, maybe you've not even formed number 3, but maybe you have 1 and 2. So as you speak about 1 and 2, your mind is quickly forming number 3, and then it just sounds like you know the answer. So when you say, 3 things, the interviewer is like, okay, this person knows. What you will find out in consulting or in corporate, they say, there is the performed confidence or performed competence. And so every time you structure your thinking and you say, 3 things that I think affect this, you are appearing like you are really competent in these brainstormed ideas. And you might not even have the ideas. And so by structuring, that is one way of performing competence. Another tip, avoid generic ideas. Like I mentioned, the lowest hanging fruit here is to use client language and client context. So when you talk about we need to look at the cost of whatever, the cost of this thing. Use particular language, laptop costs or whatever it is. Generic answers like launch a loyalty program. That is generic. But if you could make it more this particular client-centric, you could say something like partner with Hilton Hotel on a miles card that our customers can use. Like use names, you get the point. Make sure you say what you will prioritize and the next step. As we mentioned, it might be wrong next step, but you get the point. The interviewer will kind of re-steer you elsewhere. So you could say something like, so you say 1, 2, 3 things. And then once you are done with number 3, you could say, out of all these 3, I would actually prioritize number 1 because it has the highest near-term impact and lowest implementation risk. And if we have time, we could look more on that. And then the interviewer will be like, no, do not worry. We do not have time for now. That could be a problem for next time. Recommendation, module number 7 is where you give us a structured conclusion. Synthesize everything we've covered into a clear recommendation with supporting arguments and concrete next steps. Some of the tips here. Ask for time to synthesize. This is a must. So on a blank page, I would recommend start structuring your thoughts together. And I would say quickly go through all the pages, all those modules from glance at the problem. What were we solving for? I would say that is where you start as you write your recommendation. Don't spend a lot of time again. When you come back to tell us your recommendation, we said always top down. Start with what you're recommending. My recommendation is to increase X. Start with the answer and then go to the reasoning behind. So you remember the calculations we did? It was not just for fun. There was a reason. So you make sure you mention some of the numbers that you found as you went through the calculations. Also the brainstorming, it wasn't for fun. There was a reason. So you make sure you pull some of those ideas into the reasoning, into the why to support your recommendation. I would say 3 things, just 2 or 3 things. That's it. So you could say So my recommendation is XYZ because number one, we did this. Number two, number three. As a next step, because we looked at the cost side, as a next step, it would be interesting to also look at the revenue, and particularly to just look at the pricing, because that came up during our calculation. Something like that. Whatever you say as a next step, as long as it's reasonable and it's succinct and makes sense and you are confident in it. Final thought: structure, performed confidence, and performed competence is what makes you win case interviews. You might be shaking inside, but just appear confident and calm. A candidate who is organized, who is messy, who is clear, who takes time before speaking, does not ramble, will outscore a disorganized genius when it comes to business casing. It's all about structure. So practice all these 7 modules and walk in confidently. I wish you all the best.